Greetings, my fellow software test engineers, and welcome to the Software Test Automation Revealed YouTube channel, or STAR for short, hosted by me, Cody Gibson. In this episode, we're going to dive deep into fetching test input data from a database. I'm going to demonstrate how we can make it simple and easy to fetch the data from the database, and even make it strongly typecast so that your code can easily consume it by your test steps. So before we move on though, would you please click that like and subscribe button? Thank you. Now let's suppose you've got an input form similar to this, where this is the input form for creating a dinner in our ProDinner application. In it, you've got to put in a name, you've got to select a country, you need to select a chef, you also need to put in an address. You have to select a start date, a time, as well as a duration, and you have to select meals. After you've input all of that data, then you've got to click the OK button. So this is what the data looks like. Notice you can have multiple meals in it. Well, we're going to fetch all of this data from the database so that you don't need to hard code it into your test code. Now, first thing, we're going to need a database to host our data. I like MongoDB, and there are two ways you can get MongoDB. MongoDB has a free community edition. They also have an enterprise edition. It's kind of expensive, but you can use it if you like. Maybe your company already has enterprise edition and you can just kind of like piggyback onto it and put your test data into it. MongoDB also has an online database as a service. They call it Atlas. So you can sign up as a service, and for a very, very small application, very small amount of data, they actually have free service. You can put your data up there on MongoDB Atlas and access it that way, and use it that way for free for, like I said, for a very small amount of data. So once we have a database in place, now we need our data. So this is what the data would look like in MongoDB. Notice how it looks like JSON. So we've got element and value, element, value, element, value. And I'm going to describe in detail how these works. We're going to use environment for our testing environment. So in a large corporate environment, you usually have multiple test environments. And for each environment, you could have a different input data requirements. So you could have prod, you could have test environment 1, test environment 2, and we're going to key off of this for our different testing environments. Next, we could have target country. In an enterprise application, a web application that works around the world, you might have different countries with different data requirements. Then you also might have different languages within that country that require different data, different sets of data. For example, Canada, there's English and French in Canada. So you might have EN for Canada and English, or you might have FR for French in Canada. Then finally, we actually have what we call a test data key. So we've already selected our target environment, our target country, and our target language. And now this becomes our key for which document out of MongoDB that we actually want to fetch. So we can have as many different documents with different data in it. In this case, I'm going to call our test data key dinner. So we're going to fetch the dinner document out of MongoDB. And then we have one more element, which is going to be now this JSON object, which is actually our input data for our test. So this becomes the name for the input. Then we have our country, we have our chef, we have that address. Here we have that start date. Then we have the time, and then we have, notice this is an array. So we have an array of meals to be entered. And finally, we have our duration. Okay. So before I go into this, let's actually show you what that looks like in MongoDB. So this is MongoDB Compass, which is basically it's a client that comes with MongoDB that you can download and install in order to access your data. If you notice, let's see, can I make this bigger? No, I really can't make this bigger. It's kind of small. I'm sorry about that. But here's our data, and we can expand it. Here's our meals. So this is how our data actually looks in MongoDB. Now, we also have this ID. This is the unique, guaranteed unique object or document ID across all documents contained in MongoDB. MongoDB will create this automatically for you. You don't need to worry about it. Every time you say add data or insert a document, it's going to generate a new ID and add it to your document automatically. So like I said, you don't need to think about it. All right, let's go back to our presentation. So now in our code, we're going to use just a single line to fetch all of our data. This is kind of like magic. I've got a static class called TestDataProvider, and it has a static method, getAll. It takes a model. This is a plain old C object, kind of a C# data model that is going to be used for the strongly typecast data for your test to use. Now it takes 3 additional parameters. The first parameter is the name of the database. So this is star, which is our database name, which is right here. This is the database. And I'll talk about this later. Well, yes, we have a star sandbox as well. And then the next parameter, that's the name of the collection. So we need to specify the name of the collection to pull the data from. So ProDinner, that matches this collection. You can have multiple collections, and that's perfectly fine and probably good when you have different types of data for different applications maybe. So I've got just one database, one collection of documents. So here in this collection, we could have multiple documents, ProDinner, and then the third parameter, this is the TestDataKey. So this is the specific document out of the collection that we want to fetch. We're going to convert it into this DinnerModel C# object, which can be consumed by the test. We're going to store it in this data, this variable called data. Now, like I said, here is the TestDataKey, which is matching the TestDataKey right here. So this is the TestDataKey right here. That's what it's going to match and pull out that document. Okay, so now that we have the data, we've got a strongly typecast C# object right here, and we can pass that object into our CreateDinner method as well as our VerifyDinner method. Okay, the object itself, it's pretty plain and simple. We've just, it's basically a plain old C type of object. We've got a string for name, country, chef, address, a date time for a start, and a time, and a duration, and a meals. So this is this list, by the way, list of string for our meals. So this getAll method, basically it pulls the data out of MongoDB. It will deserialize it, and it's very intelligent, so it knows how to handle strings, date times, lists. It's pretty intelligent how it does it, and so it's doing it all kind of automatically for you, so you don't need to really worry about it. You don't need to think about it. It will handle it for you. And even if you have structures inside structures, it can handle that as well. Now, so here is that magic method, getAll. Let's take a look at how it works. You see it takes string is the database name, string collection name, string TestDataKey. Now, I said I would talk about later. Yes, there's a database and a database-sandbox. Now, why would I take a DB name and add sandbox to it. But notice I'm only adding it if I'm in debug mode. Well, let me explain that. See, the idea is that, actually I've got a better slide on for handling that. See, what you want is you want to have two separate databases. So when you're set up for a CI/CD environment, you want everything, all of your tests to pull from an official CI/CD database. Consider this kind of like your code repository. In this case, this is your data repository. This is your master record. So when you're running tests in a CI/CD environment on a CI/CD server, you want it to pull from the main database. But you want a second database for doing all of your development and testing. So what you don't want to do is, as you're changing data in your sandbox, you don't want it breaking your official tests, your CI/CD tests that are running concurrently. So you change your data in here for while you're developing your tests and testing changes and testing application changes, test changes, and all of that. You want to do all of those changes in this sandbox, and then make sure you replicate that data into your main database once you are complete with all of your test development. And so you've pushed your test code. You want to push your data in synchronously with it into the main database. All right, let's go back to this method. So here we're saying we're going to create a connection to our MongoDB server. Application settings, MongoDB server, that's the connection string, and that has been input into the our JSON file for our application settings. Then we want to say get the database from the database name. Then we want to say get the collection from the collection name. Now it takes a type, so we're giving it this data repo type, which is from, I need to fix that. That should be type T. Oh no, I'm sorry, I take it back. No, this is data repo. This is a generic collection, or generic type object for getting all of the data from MongoDB, because the structure of the data is fairly rigid. The test input data itself can be very, very flexible, but everything above that test input data must be fixed. So we're giving it a strong typecast. Now we can say collection find everything, and create a to list, and it's actually going to get, what we want to do is, I need to take this out. This does not belong in there. Okay, ignore this line. This is the real line. Collection.find, we're going to say where environment equals the application settings target environment. So in our application settings, we are going to set our target environment, and that would be prod normally, and then application settings would be our target country. In this case, we might say US. Application settings, target language, that would be the EN, and test data key comes from the test data key. That's the input right here. Okay, and we're going to get just the first document. Now, technically, MongoDB can find multiple documents, but we only want one. We're only interested in one. So we're going to have a unique combination of documents based upon the target environment, country, language, and test data key. So those four parameters should return a specific, unique document. So by saying .first, we actually get that document, and the find, the .first, it's very, very intelligent. It knows to deserialize it into, well, actually no, it's converting it into a doc. It's converting it into this data type. So then we're going to deserialize it. So here's where that magic truly happens. With us deserializing it into type T. So we said type T, which is this generic type T here. we're going to say, give me the document and give me that test input data. So we're going to deserialize test input data into object type T. So remember, test input data is this. This is our test input data. So we're going to deserialize all of this stuff. Now let me go back here. It's easier to see here. It's easier to see. So this is our test input data. This is the part that we're going to, or I'm sorry, this is the part we're going to deserialize, just this test input data. Our data repo, our structure matches this. It treats this as a generic type, what we call a BSON document. Everything else, this is free form, but it knows that these four are strings. It's going to treat those as strings. Okay, so that's how this magic happens with this get all. You know, the deserialize, that comes with the MongoDB driver. It's very smart, very intelligent, does a lot of magic for us, so we don't need to think about it. So that's going to deserialize from, and you know, after we get the dinner model, so we get a dinner model object as data that we can use in our tests. All right, and I already covered this. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual code. So I've created a new test, and this is called CreateDinner test. And it's, like I said, covered here. I'm getting the data from MongoDB. I'm telling it, navigate to the dinners page in our application, create a dinner, and I'm passing it data for creating that dinner. Now let's take a look at that method real quick. All right. So it takes an object type dinner model, dinner data, and it's using that to filling in for all of those fields. We're going to say the name field, well, type the name field. For country, you need to click on a drop down to open the country, and then type the country. That goes into a filter. We need a small thread sleep because the filtering is not instant, but it's very, very close to instant. Now we actually have to play some games in order to click the right country. And then we have to say, click the OK button to select the country. Similarly, we click on the chef to open the drop down for chef. Then we type chef into that's a input filter field. And then we click on the chef to select it. And now we go to the address field and we type in our address. We go into the start date and we type in our start date. And we're taking our start date and we're converting it into a simple date string. That's what the application wants, is a simple date string. And then time, we take our time and send it as a simple, type it in as a simple string. Then our duration, we're converting duration, which is stored as an integer, converting it into a string and typing those keys. And now meals. Meals is a multi-select type of drop down. So we can actually say, find all of the meals and select them one at a time. So I'm iterating through each and every meal that's in this meals array. I'm finding it by its text. So I'm finding the element by its text, and then I'm clicking on it to select it, which will add it into the meals field. Okay, now here we need to play a few games because once I click the OK button, there's a little bit of a delay before the grid itself in the UI is updated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, wait until the rows count is updated. Wait until it's changed. And I'm going to do that by capturing the current rows count before I do the clicking on the OK button to save the new dinner definition. And then I say, wait for the rows count to be different. In other words, the text on that element to be different. And this is my time limit that I'm going to wait. And then we return back to the main test. So we can come up here, and now we want to do the verification. We want to verify that the data was successfully added to the grid. Let's take a look at that. The first row, we grab the first row from the table, and we get all of the cells contained in that first row. And now we use what's called an assertion scope. This is special with fluent assertions, so that the fluent assertion will run all of these tests, no matter which one fails. If any of them fail, it will throw one exception, but it will actually do all of these validations, and it will report back to you which ones failed. If they passed, it will just simply not report it. It's only going to report those that failed. Now you might notice this one's a little bit special. I'm taking the meals, which is an array, and I'm using the .NET true for all, S for string, and I'm saying get the cells, and I'm going to verify that the cell, which is the meals cells, contains that meal. So I want to make sure that every meal I said to add is actually present on that meals cell. And that's it. Assuming that all works, it would actually pass. Why don't we see if we can get this to run? Let me get down into, all right. Now this runs kind of fast. I hope you can see it. Go ahead and run. All right, compiling, launching the browser, navigating, and there we go. Boom, 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 boom. Done. It passed. Now you notice it did run pretty quickly. And this is normal, and it passed. So that is it. I hope that is very, very helpful and useful to you. And let's go back to, all right. So thanks again for tuning in. Please don't forget to click that like and subscribe button. And next, episode 6, we're going to dive deep into storing the test results into the database. I'm going to show you how you can make the tests, store test results into the database, and all of the tests storing the test results in the database. You know, with every test you write, you don't really need to think about it. We're going to put the logic into the base classes to calculate all of the test results and save all the test results. Each test will get its own results pushed into the database so that you can aggregate your data together and do reporting on your test results. Thanks again. Have a good one. After recording the video yesterday, I realized I forgot a couple of pieces of important information, primarily the configuration, the new configuration settings I had to add. Specifically, in our appsettings.json file, I had to add these entries. I had to add target country plus target language plus the MongoDB connection string. I installed MongoDB on my local system, so I'm using a local instance of it. You can do that. If you are going to be using MongoDB Atlas, you'll want to replace this string with the connection string to your MongoDB Atlas server. Also, optionally, if you, in your configuration, in your application, you don't need a target country and target language, you could go ahead and remove these, as well as remove where it's being used in the test data provider. So to match these settings, I also had to modify the application settings file. So I added the settings here for the target country, the target language, and the connection string as well, so that they can be read and used by the application, by the test project itself. All right, another thing I failed to do is, I know the test ran so fast we could barely see it. So I went ahead and recorded it, and here I can manually play it back in slow speed so you can see just how it works in actual, slow motion kind of thing. So the recording starts here on the dinner grid view page. The first thing it wants to do is click this Create button. So it clicks that button, and that's when it pops up this Create dialog. Then the next thing we do is we type into the name field, which would be the name of the dinner we're creating. Then it clicks on this drop down for the country, which gives us a list of countries that we can pick from. Yep, there's list countries. It types in the country name into this filter field, which then limits the, it does the filtering. Now the test is going to click on this one along with the OK button to select that one. Okay, slowly move forward. See, it's selected country. But if you notice real closely, there was a slight delay before the country showed up there. Next, we have to select the chef. Similarly, it has to click on this drop down to get the list of chefs that you can pick from. We go slowly forward, and it types in the let's see if I can go back this way. Yes, it clicked on it, it opened up, we get our list of chefs, all the possible chefs. Then it enters in, this is the filter field, it enters in the chef's name we're interested in, and it's going to click on this one to select it. We move forward, and it selected it. All right. Then we move forward, it types in the address, move forward a little bit more, types in the start date, go forward a little bit more, and it just types in the time here. And let's go in a little full. Here it's typing in the duration. Then we click once here on this meals, and it opens up this drop down. Now you're able to select multiple meals in here. So using the code, we're going to select first the rhinestone, and then poutine, and then it's going to want to click on this OK button to save it. Okay, it's closing it, it's clicking the OK. Now there's just a little bit of delay, and then we'll see this number count. Maybe it's already done it, but let's see. We go forward a little bit more. No, I think it's already updated it, but it did. It went from 271 to 272. We go back all the way to the beginning, and we can see that, yes, it started off at 271. Oops. And then goes to 272 after clicking OK. Went to 272 really quickly, and that's okay. Then the test validates. What it does is it finds the first row here, and it validates the contents of this first row to make sure it's all correct. That's how that test works. All right, I hope that helps clarify a few things. Let's see, did I miss anything else? We've added, yes, in the repo, to help you import your data, I've added a JSON file. So you can use this JSON file to import data into your MongoDB instance, whether that's a local instance running on your local machine or MongoDB Atlas. You can still import this JSON into your MongoDB. Data repo, yeah, we talked about that model already. That's added. Test data provider. This was the new one with the GetAll method. Application settings modified. We added the dinner model, which we have covered, I believe. This is the model being used by the test. We've modified dinner page. We added all these web elements, as well as the create dinner was added. We added this dinner page validation. So this is a brand new class. This is validating that first row, which we covered in the previously. And yes, we've modified the app settings. I reduced the timeout as well from 240 to 15. I just decided that 240 is just too long. And we added this dinner page test. That's what else was added to the test project. All right, that's it. Thanks.